Good morning. I hope that your Wednesday is off to a good start. I'm, I'm glad that you're going to take a few minutes with me on a sort of a cloudy, ugly Wednesday morning. Once again, this mug is made by my favorite potter, and the funny little squiggling on there, if you can see that, is the Hebrew word shalom. And if there's one word from Hebrew that is important, that's it, the Hebrew word shalom. Or it's actually not, I can probably think of another one or two words that are equally important. But shalom means peace, but not just peace, but also completeness and wholeness. But that's for another time. Anyway, I am glad you're going to take a few minutes with me on a rather cloudy, humid Wednesday morning here. I want to read a little bit from Hebrews. Hebrews, the last portion of Hebrews 11, the first couple of verses of Hebrews chapter 9. If you were with me in worship in my little corner of the kingdom this past Sunday, I mentioned that Hebrews it's an interesting book. No one in the world knows who wrote it for sure. There are a lot of guesses, but no one really knows who wrote it. There is no strong authoritative church tradition that is attached to it. It's an enigma. It's also a curious book in that it is grouped in there with the epistles, but if you read it, it reads more like a sermon than it does simply a letter. But with that being said, I'm going to begin with Hebrews 11, verse 29. By faith, the people crossed the Red Sea as on dry land, but the Egyptians, when they attempted to do the same, were drowned. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they had been encircled for 7 days. By faith, Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient, because she had given a friendly welcome to the spies. And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, or made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Women received back their dead by resurrection. Some were tortured, refusing to accept release, so that they might rise again to a better life. Others suffered mocking and flogging, and even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were killed with the sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, mistreated, of whom the world was not worthy, wandering about in deserts and mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. And all these, though commended through their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better for us, that apart from us they should not be made perfect. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Oh, that is a wonderful text. It's a wonderful text. I was actually rather tempted to preach that text this upcoming Sunday, but I decided to go with Luke instead. So we have here in that text the last portion of what we might call the Hall of Fame of Faith. We began that in worship this past Sunday, referring to Abraham and Sarah. This reading gives you the last portion of that Hall of Fame of Faith. If you read the whole chapter, we can review who's in it. Abel, by faith, Abel made a better offering, a more acceptable offering than his brother Cain. And going back to Genesis, that is why Cain murdered his brother Abel. We have Enoch and Noah, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, the people who crossed the Red Sea, Rahab, Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah. He collectively mentions the prophets. And without naming them, if you read through the descriptions of what happened, you can sort of pick out several of them. For certain, he refers to Daniel, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Elijah, and there may be others that I didn't pick up on, but in the descriptions of what the prophets endured, he certainly sort of would be including those four: Daniel, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Elijah. After that, since we are so great a cloud of witnesses, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, anytime you're reading the New Testament and you see a therefore, like, highlight that, or imagine that being highlighted. That therefore is always terribly important. Therefore, because of all of that I've just said, because of that, we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. So, all of those people in the Hall of Fame of Faith, not men and women, and not even all of them were Israelites. Rahab most definitely was not an Israelite. So therefore, because of all of that, we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. Lay aside every weight and the sin which clings so closely, and run with patience the race that is set before us. Look into Christ, the author and perfecter of our faith. We are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, and because we run with patience the race that is set before us. And the race that is set before us is the Christian life. And Christian life is, if you're going to use a running analogy, the Christian life it's a marathon. It's a long run, it's not a sprint. Too often, I think, we subsume the Christian life to one moment at an altar where you surrender your life to Christ, one moment where you're confirmed or you're baptized or whenever it happens for you, however it happens for you. We subsume the Christian life to that, and that's all that matters. That one moment is all that matters, and that's not true. That is not the end of anything. That's simply the beginning. And that is a major point for Hebrews, that throughout the Christian life, we're to remain faithful. Throughout the Christian life, we're to remain faithful. And when I read this, I have sort of two images in mind. One is go to any high school. Go to any high school, and there on a wall, maybe around where the gym is, or in that area, there's going to be a trophy case on the wall. There's going to be a trophy case on the wall, and some slightly faded team pictures from a conference championship football team from 1980, a conference championship softball team from 2002, and on and on. Some footballs and baseballs and basketballs, some various great teams signed by the players, basketball nets draped over old trophies, things like that. So now imagine you are the current student at that high school, and you trot past that trophy case on your way out to practice. You go past that trophy case on the way out to August football practice when it is hot and humid and there are mosquitoes the size of helicopters. Or you trot past that trophy case, you're going out to baseball or softball practice when it's still cold outside before the season has started. You run past that trophy case, and that is the reminder of all of those folks that went before you and did the very same thing you did. And they did this, so can you. The next image that I have that comes to mind for me is a running image. And I've run my fair share of races. I know of 9 marathons. I don't know off the top of my head how many half marathons or similar distances or 10Ks. I just don't know. I've done my share of them. So you run your race. You're running your race, and the spectators in this case aren't the cloud of witnesses that I'm thinking about. But when you get near the finish line and you begin to see the people who have already finished. So envision a 10K, which is for us it's 6.2 miles. Envision that 10K, and over the last half mile you start seeing people who have just finished. They have just finished and they're walking back and they're standing along the sides of the road, and they're cheering on those who are still on the course. They are the great cloud of witnesses, and it is. I love seeing that. It's encouraging as a runner to see those people, because it tells you that the finish line is close. It tells you that the finish line is close and that you're almost there. But like I said, if the author here really invites us to see the Christian life as a race, it's long. It does not end when you commit your life to Christ. That is not the end of anything. Whether it's at your baptism or your bed at night or your confirmation day or at an altar, that's not the end of anything. That is not the Christian life. That is simply the beginning. That's the starter's gun. And the author here encourages us to lay aside everything that gets in the way. Lay aside every burden, the sin which clings so closely. Look into Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. The encouragement is to lay aside everything that gets in the way. All that stuff that gets in the way of our relationship with Christ. He is first and foremost, must be first and foremost. And the call here is to lay aside everything that gets in the way of Him, that gets between us and Him. Use another running image. If you go to a winter marathon that's like in December, January, February, In fact, those are great months to run a marathon because it's normally cold. It's normally cold. Cold weather marathons are a whole lot better than hot weather marathons. But you start the marathon and say it's 32 degrees, and you know that it's going to end up at, by the time you're done, 4+ hours later for most mere mortal runners. By that point, the temperature could have risen 20 degrees. And when you start that marathon, you don't plan on running that marathon the same in the same stuff you would normally wear if it's 32 outside. So, people show up to the marathon and they might have like some cheap throwaway gloves, cheap toboggan. Sometimes you'll see people just with holes cut in a large trash bag, and start off with that, and after, and they'll start off with that and have it for the first couple of miles till your body temperature warms up, and then you just start ditching it. And so over the first few miles of the marathon, you will see all sorts of stuff on the side of the road. Jackets, gloves, toboggans, all of this stuff that gets chunked on the side of the road. And yes, race organizers, they will come back after that and pick up all that stuff and sometimes donate it to, say, homeless shelters and stuff. But you lay aside that stuff because over the course of 26 miles, it becomes a hindrance. And over the course of 26 miles, a difference of 1 ounce in the weight of your shoes makes a difference. Everything makes a difference, and you don't want to carry anything extra. And you lay all that stuff aside, because the only thing that matters is getting to the finish line. So we lay aside every weight and the sin that ensnares us, put it all aside, anything that gets between us and Christ, and we look for the finish line. And in this case, Christ isn't just at the finish line, he is the finish line. Think about that. Jesus isn't just at the finish line, he is the finish line. In the long run, things get hard. Again, to use a marathon analogy, over that distance, which is 26 miles, 385 yards, it takes, just the training for the marathon is just as hard as the marathon itself. But over the last few miles of a run of that distance, things hurt. Muscles hurt that you didn't even know you had. You've probably got some blisters. You're chafing here and there. Things are hurting. And then you remember the great cloud of witnesses. And you see those people that have already finished and they're standing along the road over the last half mile or so. They are the great cloud of witnesses. They are cheering you on. And so that is the Christian life. We have the great cloud of witnesses for us. And they may be Sunday school teachers from when we were kids, or a grandmother or a grandfather or a pastor, people who have guided you that have gone on. And they are the great cloud of witnesses that surround us as we lay aside every burden and the sin which clings so closely, and run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus Christ, the author and perfecter of our faith. That's some great news on a cloudy Wednesday morning. Have a great rest of your day.